That's recorded. It's not counting. Is it supposed to? That's okay, we're okay.
You guys, we're going to go ahead and clean up the mess. Unplug at this point. We're unplugging. And we're getting started. Thank you.
Thank you. So hey everybody, my name is Erica. I'm from the Department of Labor, and I'm here to talk about some interviewing techniques. So it'll help you guys prepare for your mock interviews, and then when you're with an employer in a real interview too. Just some strategies I can hopefully provide you with today. So there's three parts. Getting ready and follow-up are very often overlooked by a lot of people. Most people just go into the actual interview, answer some questions, and hope they did their best. But preparation and following up are very huge. So for some preparation tips, do some company research. So you should expect specific questions about the company and the job during the interview. Some points to consider: if they sell something, what are their products? If they provide a service, what services do they provide? Just be very familiar with what they offer so you have an idea of what the job is like on a typical day. What is the company's mission statement? From the resume workshop, if I think some of you or all of you were in there, the mission statement is very huge. You'll get to know some of their values, some of what the employer, their goals are. Make sure you have those words in mind so that you can use them when you're answering interview questions. So that way, their language is pretty much the same language you're speaking. You read their mission statement, you can confidently answer that you know about the company. And also, why does this company appeal to you? The interview is your opportunity to find out if you want to work at that company as well. And it's also the employer's opportunity to see if you would work well with that company. So it's not only just the employer's decision on whether or not they want to hire you, it's your opportunity to see if you really want to work for that position. So ask questions during the interview, figure out if you could really see yourself working there, and see if you could really like working there. All these things are very important during the interview. Thank you. One way to research is just simply typing the company's name into Google. You can find out any of their news, you can find their social media pages where they might post jobs. You can find their website, which is important to find that mission statement and all those about us sections. So just simply Google searching is the easiest way to research. Other methods of researching are also just talking to people, networking with others. Going to LinkedIn.com. Sometimes the company's LinkedIn website might show up. Do you remember LinkedIn, the professional networking website from last time? LinkedIn has company pages, and the company pages explain a little bit about the company and some of their latest job postings, if they have any like news and events currently coming up. If you make a profile on LinkedIn, you can just follow the company and then get alerted each time that company adds a new story, posts a position, anything like that. So LinkedIn, Googling the company, going directly to their website, all these things you can do to learn more about what the company offers so you can prepare well for that interview. Carefully read the job posting for hints too. Like when we were talking in the resume class, the job posting is the employer's wish list, more or less, of the perfect employee, all the different skills and experience they're hoping that that employee will have. So look at the job posting and try and pick out any words or required skills they have for that interview. If you're repeating back words from their job posting, you're just going to make it even easier for the employer to show that you're a match for that job. American Job Centers. I worked in the job centers in the eastern region of the state. We have job centers all over the state, like the one in Hartford, which is probably the closest around here. We have employers visit our centers pretty often. We conduct hiring events, so employers will actually interview a lot of people on the spot, see if they're going to be a good fit for the job. And that could be one way where you can get just practice going in meeting with employers and getting the whole experience before you have your own interview that you really prepare for. So, questions so far? Or if you guys have questions at any time too, just let me know. But professional dress is very important. Make sure you wear solid colors, just conservative clothing. Don't wear anything too tight or too baggy. You just want to dress professionally. The goal is to be remembered for what you said, not what you wore. So clean, polished shoes, Limit the use of perfume or cologne. Some interviewers might be allergic to a certain perfume or cologne too, so it could just be like a bad scenario if they end up having a really bad allergy to the perfume you're wearing. So I would wear only a little bit of it, or maybe none at all to be on the safe side. Jewelry, you could wear 1 or 2 pieces of jewelry if you normally wear it all the time, but I wouldn't wear anything too loud or too big because it could be distracting when the employer's talking to you. And again, you want to remember, want them to remember what you're saying, not what you're wearing. Because if they remember what you're wearing, then that means they didn't focus on the skills and the things that you said. So all these things are just to stay neutral, so then they can focus on your words. Portfolio is the last item too. The portfolio, or a bag, or a folder, anything that you can use, so then it can transport all your materials easily. And in a little bit, I'll talk about what to bring with you on the interview. Thank you. So professional dress. Say you're going in for an interview. Hoodies and jeans might be what you could wear on a really casual job, like if you worked at a park somewhere or something. But on day of the interview, you always want to dress very professionally. So for example, sorry, want to go back real quick? This person has on a blouse, a skirt, some nice shoes, and a portfolio or a little folder bag. This is a professional dress, so you can wear this for any interview. Guys can wear a jacket or a button-down shirt and a tie, pantsuits, dress shoes, anything professional and just kind of neutral. Because there was actually a story of somebody that went for a job at an amusement park, which is where they would wear flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts all day long. So a lot of people showed up to the interview just wearing the flip-flops and the shorts and stuff. And the employer pretty much figured people were going to come in dressed like that. So it didn't bother them at all, but it wasn't anything outstanding. One person showed up wearing a blouse or a button-down and some dress pants. They got offered a management position to work at that park. So how you dress can greatly influence how you're viewed by the employer, and it's complemented greatly by selling yourself and talking about the skills that you have for that job. Thank you. What to bring? Since you're bringing a portfolio or a bag or something to hold all your materials in, bring copies of your resume. And at the job centers, we have that heavier weight resume paper. We can make copies, print it out for you over there. And 2 pens. Black's preferred because it usually goes with any application, but black or blue is fine. I would just advise to bring 2 in case you have one, and then of course, it dries out or breaks on you or something, you have a backup. Let's see. List of references. Anybody currently have references, maybe you're putting it down for a college application or something like that. Could be, a teacher, maybe somebody you volunteered with. Have some references for professional references. And anybody you worked on a big project with, you can ask the person and see if you can use them as a reference. You might be also asked for personal references. That's where you could have maybe a family or a friend or somebody to talk about you personally. But your professional references should always be somebody you worked with at one point. Could be something you got paid for or volunteered for, but professional references will usually be asked for at the end of the interview. Parking money. In case you need to park in some type of a garage or side street, meter change parking. What I like to do when I can is just drive to the place ahead of time, get familiar with the surroundings, use Google Maps or GPS to get there too, just so I know what I'm going to be in for, what kind of traffic I'm going to be seeing the day of the interview. It just helps kind of de-stress. You don't have to worry about where you're going because you've already been there and you drove there ahead of time. Notepad or a notebook. Bring this in case you want to take notes during the interview. Although you'll research a lot, there still might be some important information that you learned during that interview that you want to write down or remember for later. So bringing a notepad is helpful. Just ask the employer first before you start writing notes. Ask if it's okay if you can take notes. 99% of the time they'll say yes, but it's just a respect thing to ask them first and be polite. So a reminder, the resume, bring 2 pens, bring a notepad to take some notes, and you can call a front desk or reception or someplace to know if you'll need parking money or any type of change for the parking situation. All right, for the application, you'll usually fill out an application ahead of time, but sometimes you have to fill out an application the day of the interview. Maybe they lost it, or maybe it's just part of their interview process. But to emphasize the fact of reading directions, I have a small exercise, might take about 5 minutes or so. Oh, thanks. Would you like to see? Yeah. You're welcome.
She was like, okay, we need.
So you guys, I think she's ready to start back.
You guys get a chance to finish up a little bit.
Okay.
So I didn't get too many of you guys, that's too bad. But you might have noticed, the very first direction is read everything before doing anything, but work as rapidly as you can. And then you'll see on number 18, it says, now that you have read all the directions carefully, do only what sentence 1 asks you to do and ignore all other directions. So in the last class I got a couple people, and this is also like the nice version of this exercise, because when I originally did it, and I was getting trained by a coworker on how to do the workshop, there was instructions like jump up and stand around and wave your hands in the air and like all these ridiculous things. And of course I fell for every single one of them. So yeah, wah wah. But that's important for applications because sometimes there are sneaky little things in there that gets you to do extra work, or you'll miss something huge because you failed to read directions. But some tips to remember: make sure you read everything carefully, write neatly, describe your job skills when you're writing about what you did at your last position, and never write C resume. This is just so you complete the application fully and how they want you to complete it. Even though your resume might have a lot of the same information that you're going to put down on the application, you still want to fill out the application as completely as you can so they know that you're responding to their roles and their requests. Lastly, be honest with all answers, because the application is actually a legal document because you sign it at the very bottom. Whether it's online or a paper application, you want to make sure that everything is true to the best of your ability. And one more. So the day of the actual interview, try and have your clothes prepared ahead of time, your material ready, the copies that you wanted to make, printing out. You don't want to have printing problems at the very last minute, or realize you have to like iron something and you don't have time to do that before the interview. It'll just help you de-stress and have everything ready, and you'll know you're ready to go. Create a positive outlook. So if you feel like you're going to do well in the interview and you're very confident and you're motivated and you're excited for the opportunity to interview, chances are you'll do better than if you think you're not going to do well. It's just the power of how you're thinking. It's going to influence how you say things and your confidence and how you're responding. Eat a good meal because it'll help you focus better, and you won't be concerned with anything else. You can just focus in on that interview. Get directions. Like we were saying before, you want to maybe drive there ahead of time, get some maps, so it's also you're not going to be late for the interview. Try and get there 15 to 30 minutes early, depending on where you're going. Some places you might have to check in and register as a guest and then go across campus to the interview. So once you call up the reception or get an idea for what the interview is going to be like, gauge how much time you might need ahead of time to just be prepared to get in there. And be polite to everyone you come in contact with. The reception desk or security guards might meet along the way. You never know who might have an influence in the hiring decision. So just be polite and friendly to everybody you see. And sometimes the hiring manager actually sits at the front desk waiting for people to come in to see if they're just going to be like playing on their smartphones, or if they're going to be sitting there reading the company material, or if they're just going to be talking on the phone. Like, they're going to gauge how their behavior is when they're sitting alone. To try and see a little bit more about who this person is before the interview. So make sure that you're always on best polite behavior whenever you're at that interview. Because the interview actually starts when you pretty much walk in the door, even though you're not necessarily sitting down with the employer at that point. Thank you. Turn off your cell phone. Let's see. If you schedule like follow-up meetings, you might be asked for a second interview. So if you schedule things in your phone, you could bring it with you. I would just shut it off. I wouldn't even trust silent because I have like a million different notification sounds for everything else. Sometimes one will pop up for an alarm. So I just plain old shut it directly off or leave it in the car when I'm going in for an interview. If you leave it in the car, you won't have to worry about it. You can just jot down the date and time if they do want a follow-up interview. And it'll just show that you're respecting the interviewer's time, that you're not like looking at your phone if it's a habit. You're focusing totally on that employer and the conversation you're having with him or her. If for any reason, it happens, if your phone does go off, best thing you can do is just apologize immediately. Say, oh, I thought I shut this off, I'm so sorry. Don't even look at who's calling or who might have messaged or anything. Just shut it off, put it back in your bag, and then return to the interview. So then you can just quickly address it, apologize, and move on. Thank you. So the interview. It's a meeting to connect a business with a potential employee. Interviewers could be from HR, human resources, a manager, maybe the owner of the company, maybe the company president, maybe some level of management in between. But you never know who might be the interviewer that day. You can call ahead of time, but be prepared if it's going to be one person, because sometimes it could be a couple people interviewing you. You can always ask and see, and then you can prepare how many copies of your resume you might need for that day. Also, like I was saying earlier, it's your chance to see if you want to work there. If you get to meet the interviewer and you're polite and you're friendly and you respond well to his questions or her questions, but it's just not seeming like it's going to be the right job for you, use the interview as your guide to ask more questions to make those determinations. If something seems like it might not be so right for you, just clarify and ask more. And the more questions you ask, it'll show that you're engaged and you really do want to learn about the job. Thank you. And just like your cell phone, how if it does go off, if you forget to leave it in the car or shut it off, how you just shut it off, apologize, and don't even look at the phone. Non-verbally, that shows that you weren't more interested in your phone, you're more interested in the interviewer. And your non-verbal communication is huge. I think it's about, they say 70% of what you say is actually your body language, and then the rest of it is actually the words. So there's more weight in your body language than the words that you're actually saying. So dressing for success, if you're dressing professionally and you show up professionally dressed on the day of the interview, it shows that you're respecting the interviewer's time, you're taking the interview seriously, and you prepared well for the interview. A firm handshake is just to show that you're confident, that you're serious, and it's also a friendly gesture. When you meet somebody for the first time, if you shake their hand, it's offering like a sign of friendship or respect. So always reach out to try and shake the interviewer's hand when you meet them for the first time. Smiling and making eye contact. Part of the interview is just getting the interviewer to like working with you every day. So if you smile, if you're friendly, if you make eye contact while you're talking to them, all these things would leave a positive impression with the interviewer. Sit up straight. It's also a sign of confidence too, if you sit up straight and you're attentive to the interviewer. Speak clearly, but not too fast. If you speak too fast, that can be a habit of maybe being a little bit nervous, which is fine, but you'll speak a little bit slower and more confidently if you practice your answers enough times. So the more you practice and prepare for the interview, the more confident you're going to be. Respect personal space. So if there's a situation where you walk into the interview room and the employer is sitting behind a desk, I wouldn't immediately put my stuff down on that desk. You could wait for them to offer, or maybe you could leave it by your side or your bag or your notepad right on your lap and then wait for them to offer and let you put it on their desk. It sounds a little silly, but some people are very protective over like office desks and stuff, so just be on the safe side with that. And lastly, respect the interviewer's time. Now, if you wear a watch, don't look at your watch. Always let them, always focus on the employer. And the employer, nobody has the role of just interviewer for the day. So the employer probably isn't doing his regular duties. He's actually just interviewing people all day long to try and find, fill a need, fill some vacancy they have within their department. So the employer actually is holding up his job so he could spend time with you and get to know you and see if you could help out their company. So always respect and appreciate the time that they take. So thank them at the end of the interview, thank them in follow-up emails or phone calls or anything, and let them know that you appreciate it. So some common nonverbal interviewing mistakes. No knowledge of the company is actually one of the biggest things employers don't like during interviews. If somebody says that they wanted the job just because they need a job, it shows they didn't even Google search or read an article or ask anybody, because it doesn't have to be anything major, although a lot of research and preparation will give a really good impression to the employer, but absolutely no preparation just shows that maybe you don't respect their time or you're not really interested in the job. So you make sure you do your preparation, do your research, so that you won't seem like you don't know anything about the company. Failure to make eye contact. Although it could be nervous going into an interview when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you always want to show that you're confident, and eye contact is a huge part of that. If somebody doesn't maintain eye contact during conversation, it could just be a little bit awkward for the person on the other end, and then it's like, do I really want to work with a person every day if they're not even going to look at me in the eye when we're talking to each other? So little things like that, make sure you maintain some casual eye contact. And the boss might even know within the 90 seconds, 90 seconds whether or not they're going to hire you, and that could be based on some nonverbal cues. If somebody comes in and they're professionally dressed, they give a firm handshake, they smile, they introduce themselves, that's a positive introduction. If somebody comes in and they didn't professionally dress, maybe they're like, just dressed kind of like how they would be dressed on a weekend or something, and they don't offer for a handshake, they just kind of look down and sit down and immediately put their stuff on the employer's desk, that's going to leave a negative impression. And even though they didn't even say anything much at this point, it can have a huge weight for the rest, it sets the tone basically for the rest of the interview. And failure to smile. I mentioned that again because smiling is such a big part of the interview that when people are preparing answers and practicing and they want to make sure they're saying everything correctly, that they're just kind of sitting there like stone face, and they forget that, oh, okay, I can smile, I am allowed to have a good time while I'm talking to this employer. Try to get them to like me. Next. Thank you. Let's see, any questions so far? You guys good? Okay. Interview questions. Keep your answers short and stay on topic. And on topic, I mean keep them related to the job you're applying for. There's a few topics you don't want to get into during the interview, and that's anything that's not related to the job itself. So personal details, talk about money or pay or anything like that. Always keep everything related to your skills or your abilities and how you can do the job you're applying for. And that is probably one of the biggest pieces of interview advice that people kind of stray from while they're answering questions. But if one of your answers feels like it's not related directly to the job, change your answer so that it is completely job focused. If needed, ask to hear the question again. Interviewers can sometimes talk a little fast. Don't assume you know what they said. You can just ask them, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat that for me, please? And interviewers are more than happy to just repeat themselves. It's fine. And let's see, if there's a question that might throw you off a little bit, you can prepare for a lot of questions ahead of time, but there still could be a question that's just way out there that you never heard before and you don't know how to respond immediately. Instead of getting nervous because you don't have an answer prepared for that type of question, just take a moment and kind of collect your thoughts and see if some other question answer that you prepared could kind of work for that answer too. But don't feel like you have to immediately jump and start talking. You can just take a few moments and then respond once you have an idea of what you want to say together. Ask if you can take notes, if you bring the notepad, and have a positive attitude. So you never want to go negative during an interview. If any answer seems like it could be potentially on the negative side, you want to adjust it, tweak how you word it, so that it always stays positive. Because for the interview, you want to maintain upbeat, smiling, positive, likable, and show that you can do the job. So I'm going to get into a couple sample interview questions. Excuse me. One is very common. And it's this first one that's tell me about yourself. And this is where some people get very personal and they talk about who they are as like, I grew up in such and such area, I really like, these shows or this type of music. But you got to keep your answer job related. So I have some sample answers on this slide. A good answer for somebody that's maybe in high school going off into college, like some of you might be. I'm a recent high school graduate, about to start my major in healthcare administration. I volunteer each summer at a local hospital, which has taught me many skills, such as customer service and a strong knowledge of software programs. So they don't really talk about too much about themselves personally, just their education and their skills, which would be a perfect outline for an interview answer. A negative one talks about how they want to be a writer someday, how their friend said the job was easy and pays pretty well. Those are things, although they might be true, you don't want to say in an interview because it seems like you're not engaged and really wanting to do that job. Other common questions: what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Always in some form will these questions be asked. The strengths part is easy. You can just take a look at that job description, the job posting, pull out a couple of required skills, and if there's strengths that you have, you can mention those as your strengths. Weaknesses can be a little bit more difficult to address because weaknesses could be anything anything you might have a personal weakness in, but you want to make sure it's not a requirement for that job. So for those of you that are going into healthcare, if somebody was applying for a healthcare type job and they didn't like working with people, then that would probably be a bad fit completely. Nobody in a hospital would want somebody that doesn't have customer service skills. They want somebody that would love to help people. So I have some samples on the next. So pretend you're going for a sales type job. A good answer would be I don't have experience working professionally yet, which is a weakness. But from volunteering, I gained a lot of customer service skills. I'm also very familiar with your products and I'm excited to get a chance to sell them. So although it starts off negative, saying how they don't have any experience professionally working yet, they quickly change it and talk about the positive aspects that they have, their skills, their volunteer work. And a negative answer, it just gets a little bit too honest and personal. Not good at talking to people, I do live close by, I'll try my best, but I've never sold anything before. Just way too negative. So focus on skills and the job itself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Anybody have any idea where they see themselves in 5 years? No? Yeah. It's a tough question regardless of any age. But what the employer wants to know is that you're going to stay with the company. They spend a lot of money trying to hire on people, train them, provide uniforms or anything like that that might be needed. So if you're just going to leave within a couple months, the employer wants to know right off the bat so they can hire somebody that will stay on for the long term. Thank you. Bad answer is hopefully living in California. Unless the job is in California, then that would be fantastic. But that's very far away from here, and an employer would not want to invest the time and money in you being their employee if that's the case. A positive answer, as a college graduate who has contributed well to your company, I would be an expert in the position I'm applying for now, and hopefully even exploring positions of greater responsibility. So this answer is very strong because not only are they saying that they want to finish up college, which shows that they have educational pursuits, which the employer would like, but it also says that they would love the position they're in and they would hope to be an expert in that position. It doesn't immediately say that they want to be manager or own the whole company. It's not too bold. It's like that right perfect amount in the middle that says that they would definitely be open to a lot more responsibility, but they love the job that they're applying for now. Why are you interested in working here? Very early on, we talked about the research. So research is going to be huge for all your interview answers, and your research will help out with this answer. A positive answer is, well, everyone I spoke to that works here loves it. I'm a big advocate for your services. I read your mission statement, and I would love to work for an organization dedicated to helping the community. So there's 3 different, ways they researched. They asked current employees what they think of it. They read the mission statement, and they also support the services themselves. The negative answer, although it's honest, again, it doesn't say anything about the research they did. Just, I need a job, and I saw you guys were hiring. The employer doesn't take anything away from that at all. And that's actually a common response a lot of employers get. So doing a little bit of research so you can answer more strongly than the generic no answer will just set you apart from a lot of other people that are currently interviewing. Let's see, expect specific questions about the job and company. So I can't stress it enough. Research, try and learn as much as you can so you're really prepared for that interview. And near the closing, there's usually an opportunity where you can ask questions. And a common mistake is not to ask any at all. Maybe you just want to get the interview over with, you want to just hurry up and get out of there, which I totally understand. But you want to ask at least 2 or 3. So how would you describe a typical workday? Is there anything that I could do to further my candidacy? That question can help them address any concerns they might have about hiring you. Like the employer could say, oh, you really don't have a skill in this software. You could immediately say, oh, well, I plan on getting some training, so you can address their concern right off the bat. The best case scenario for that question, too, would get to the employer to say, like, I don't have any concerns at all. Actually, I think you'd be great working here. And once you get that employer talking as if you already have the job, you know that you completely sold them, that you had a really strong interview, and you can just wait for hopefully more good news to come later on. What's the next step in the hiring process? This question, always ask this every single time unless they discuss it earlier, because this question will let you know if they're going to call you back, if you should call them, and then you're not left like wondering, like, oh, should I call them? Is it going to be annoying if I call them? Should I email them? Do they like to be emailed? And it'll clear up any type of questions that a lot of job seekers have concerns with for interview follow-up. And then they'll know if it's going to take a month or maybe a couple months or maybe even a couple days. The best part of it is you'll just know when to expect their communication. And lastly, always ask for a business card or contact info for the follow-up thank you letters. Let's see. And just to stress it again, do not ask about pay, benefits, or vacation time, although you may want to know what the starting salary is. The employer will just want to have you focus on your skills and see if you're a good fit at first. So if you put yourselves in the shoes of the employer, say 2 people come in, one person says, I'd love to work here because I could use my skills, this is right in line with my education that I'm pursuing, and it seems like a great place to work. Another person shows up and just says, what's the starting salary? Obviously the person that came before is going to leave a much positive, more positive impression on the second person who only wants to know about the money. So wait until you proved that you could be a really good fit with the company, and then ask about pay if they offer you the job. In follow-up, email or mail a thank you letter. There's a lot of different ways you can write a thank you letter, but I go for just the very simple appreciative thank you letters. A lot of people don't even send a thank you letter at all, but the day after I would just send an email, or if you have very nice handwriting, a note, handwritten card usually works too, because you don't get those that often. It kind of sets you apart. But the thank you letter should just simply state, I really appreciated the time you took to see me. It was a pleasure meeting with you and getting to learn more about position, whatever the title is. And I appreciate any time and consideration you had for me during this during the interview process. So just simply thanking them. There's a small cutout of it on your sample sheets that you have there too. But sending any type of thank you response to show them that you appreciated their time that they took to interview you that day is going to make you stand out from the other applicants who don't do thank you letters. Questions on thank you letters or anything? No? I'm thinking 3 sentences, just short emails. Some can be a little bit longer and more developed that reiterate your skills that you have. You can do those too that say as told in the interview, I have skills in X, Y, and Z. Thank you for your time and consideration. Basically, any attempt at a thank you letter is better than not sending a thank you letter. So always send one no matter what contact you have with the employer. Next steps, if you wrote your resume already, that's great. Practice interview questions. You guys are going to do some mock interviews, which will be very, very helpful. And visiting your local American Job Center can help you get more information about job openings or other trainings you can pursue if you want. So thank you, everybody. That's all, unless you had any further questions or anything. Appreciate it. Oh, okay.
So we're going to do the mock interviews.
Awesome.
Some of the interview questions are what we have as the rote interview questions. Do you have your best interview question and the worst interview question, the hardest one for students to grasp? Can you give us a couple other examples?
Of
a good mock interview question that they might be addressing.
Oh, okay. Let's see. What made you decide to apply here? It could be one that they would ask. Did you have a question? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you can keep talking.
Oh, okay. And let's see, one that's really hard for a lot of students is anybody currently working now? A couple of you. Okay, that's cool. Awesome. But for a lot of people, they don't really get work experience until later on. So addressing experience-type-based questions can be very difficult, but that's why I emphasize volunteering or working on a project, and it doesn't have to be anything very long-term, but show that you've worked on a project, show that you've collaborated with other people, and that you have experience working with people, and then you can use those stories, although they weren't paid positions, you can use them in an interview. But yeah, I can actually email you a list of some questions too. That would be
Love that.
fun.
Yeah, because we're going to practice soon, and we'll just be using each other as mock interviews, and then
Awesome.
we'll bring somebody else they don't recognize. It'll be the dress-up kind of interview
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, that'd be very good.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be awesome.
blanking on the good ones.
Yeah.
But what was your question?
What if they ask you a question and they ask you a question and you have no experience at all?
Say no project, no volunteer work or anything, then I would just kind of suggest trying to get involved in something now that you could use for a work experience type question. Is and also sometimes employers like understand if a kid like like if somebody's in high school that they don't have a lot of work experience. So a lot of employers know that going in. So the volunteer work is just going to be extra and make you stand out. A lot of people get hired without having volunteer work experience, but to be more competitive and show that you do have experience to set you apart from the other people that are currently applying, it'll just help you out even more. And you can build skills from a lot of different things, like from right in your classroom teachings, from if you do like extracurriculars, you know, even like school clubs or something, all those things can help out. Yeah. Anything else?
Tips on the group interview?
Yeah, group interviews.
That's different, and that's very intimidating.
Yeah, I've been on one actually when it was for a customer service position.
Yeah.
When people have like really big hiring events.
So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, everybody's looking at me. Yeah.
The best thing you can do is just like ignore everybody else, all their answers and stuff, and just focus on what you've prepared, what you've said. Because if you start listening to other people, you're going to say like, oh, my answer's so similar to that person's.
Yeah.
You're going to second guess yourself. Yeah. So just don't even worry about all of them. It's only for the pure convenience of the employer, so they can hire on a bunch of people at one time if they need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about this? Is technology, you know, you guys we're Google Chromebooks, we're all technologically trying to get advanced.
Yeah.
Do they do any remote, telephone-esque, remote interviews, and any tips for that?
Skype interviewing, if the job is far away, or just for pure convenience sometimes too. Skype interviewing is a little bit different because you guys used webcams before, or like, yeah. If you have a webcam set up, like you always have to look at the camera instead of like how you look in the corner of it. And if you do have to have like a webcam Skype type interview, if you have your computer set up, like say in your room or in like a study or something, just make sure the background isn't like horribly messy, yeah. You can actually just throw up like a curtain so it looks like a fake backdrop, like, you watch Big Bang Theory? Like, okay, I love that show.
I do too.
But they have this, just a tarp, or like not a tarp, but like some type of blanket set up in the background, and it acts like it's a totally different room, but it's really just a corner of somebody else's room. You know, so they don't even get distracted by anything that might be on the background in the back of the room. Lighting too. Make sure the lighting is decent, so then you're not like completely obscured or blurry or anything like that. And make sure your equipment all functions too. You don't want to have technical difficulties day of the interview. You do a test run with a friend or something.
So you guys got it? It's all handled, not at all nervous for some of these first professional interviews?
Yeah.
What about, can they come to your center and actually have a practice round of interviewing? Or is that more for resumes and cover letters and?
Well, I'm from the New London Center,
Right.
and we did those all the time. I would just recommend calling up the center ahead of time.
Okay.
Because we have career development specialists. They're basically career counselors, and I'm sure somebody would be happy to have a mock interview with you there too.
Okay.
In some offices, I'm not sure about Hartford per se, but some we actually can videotape you during that, which, you know, adds the extra pressure. Yeah, because then you can see like your nonverbal communication. It's a weird experience. I've been through it, but it's such a good learning experience. And if you can't videotape, or they don't offer it at the Hartford Center, even just recording sounds like from your phone or something else, that can help you see what kind of speech habits you have. Like when I go on an interview, I stop or try to stop saying the yas and the ums. I try to get rid of that, but it's such a hard habit. But it's just practicing over and over again. So then when you're at the interview, you don't have to get distracted and search for words and say in between. Thanks, guys.
So we've got a couple more minutes. 4 more minutes. Anybody else have a question? Do you want to throw a question at my students and see how they would answer?
Okay.
Who would like to? I won't cold call them, but
All right.
just throw out a question and see if anybody has a good response to it.
Okay. What are your greatest strengths? Anybody want to take a go?
No pressure. This is like a group interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
Greatest
strengths.
something you're good at.
Amber, you want to say your greatest strengths?
When you do get asked, you could, if you don't have the direct work experience yet, think about things you do every day. If you're part of a team or something, you could say you're great at teamwork and collaborating with others. If you like talking to other people, communication skills. A lot of these things you can just pull from everyday habits, and even asking your friends and family, what do you think my strengths are? They could have some good feedback for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we might even do that within our segments. We're going to have a couple days to work on mock interviews, and so we'll interview each other, but we might do a little bit of, what do you think? So in class, partner up and say, what do you think I offer, or what do you think I'm not very good at?
Yeah.
Or what do we need to work on? We used to do the STAR pattern too, the whole idea of give me a situation or time that you were either not successful and how did you overcome it?
Oh, yeah, those questions are very huge.
Yeah.
Those are actually really
Yeah,
good
those
questions.
are a little bit hard.
Yeah. If you provide a situation, and it could be from like school, work, anything.
Yeah.
Explain the situation of how that situation came to be, what action you took for the result, and if the result was positive, that's the story you want to share.
That's good. So, you guys, I'd like to thank Miss Tu for coming in, Miss Erica Tu for coming in, so thank you. And I look forward to you guys demonstrating what you've learned on good interview questions, because I know you all have these soft skills and beautiful leadership skills. And so much off. I'm a great student, so we'll just have to apply it. So turn this off. I'm hoping